So the day has finally come to put together yet another homemade 20-watt Circline adapter for a special someone. So here are all the parts. I'm at my work because here I can have a workbench and a whole bunch of tools. I don't have any of that at my apartment, so being able to do this here helps a lot. And of course, we just have the skylight shining through, so let's go ahead and turn on some lights. Yes, the 1000 watt mercury vapor. Doesn't sound so happy at the moment. And the metal halide. Now that we've got some lights turning on, let's see what's in this box here. So, we have a slightly deeper, regular size electrical box here, octagon box you put in your ceiling. Usually they just have the regular knockouts on the side, but this one has little older style knockouts here. I use this box because it is deeper and it provides more room inside than the standard octagon box, so that will work well. We of course need to have our medium base sockets here. So I have a couple of those. These are pretty hard to find. I'm not sure why, they're just incredibly difficult. Now you can find these on the adapters for like recessed can lights and things like that, convert them to like LED and things, but they don't have the holes to mount to them. You see the 3 holes or 4 there? They just don't have that. So here's an actual socket. Here's 2 more, because you never know. Oh, there's 4 actually. I tend to buy, when I find things, I tend to buy them in bulk. Usually it's cheaper anyway. We have our ballast. This came out of a new old stock light. It's a little rusty. It wasn't rusty before. I'm not sure what happened there. Looks like fingerprint or something made it rusty. I have to clean that up a little bit. I have turned that ballast on. It is incredibly quiet, so we're good there. It's not annoying. We have our cover plate. It's important to have one with a knockout in the center here because that is where our starter will go. So you gotta have a starter socket. Got a whole bunch of them because they were like 20 cents a piece or something. Incredibly cheap, so we have our starter socket. Plenty of those. Gotta have a starter. So here's some starters I got. Of course I do have some, but I don't have many out here, so I had to pick some up. Nothing too incredibly special, but they'll get the job done. That's for a separate project. Got some wire nuts. I have wire nuts here at work, but brought my own. And we have the plugs for the Circline bulb. Again, bought 2 because it was a little cheaper to buy 2. And here's 2 bulbs. Again, bought 2 just in case one didn't survive shipping, but they were shipped in this box like this and didn't break. I'm very surprised. So we have 2 bulbs there. And I believe that's everything. I do have a piece of metal to hold the bulb. It is cut and not shaped yet, but we'll take a look at that when we get to that point. So the first step that I'm going to work on is we need to knock out this bottom knockout there and figure out where these holes are going to be placed for the socket. So let's knock this out first. Knocking out the center there, I was able to place this on there, of course with the wires sticking through the hole, and centered it looking through the other side because this big hole in the middle, you know, where the wire's coming from, pretty much fits here. So you can center it nicely. Then I turned it over and made a mark with a pen, and you can kind of see it there, the little blue dot. I tried to use a Sharpie, but that didn't fit, so we're going to set it down and drill that hole. And I'm going to take these 2 screws out first because that's preventing us from setting it down flat, which is important. So we're going to do that one hole first because once we get that one, we'll be able to bolt it in place and do the other two. We can mark them a lot easier and make sure that everything's lined up correctly. So we're going to do this hole first. Gotten a little further here. As you can see, I had multiple tries and failures in trying to line this thing up, but eventually I got one correct. So we have the three holes here for the socket. Well, it's not really the socket. The male end of the socket, I guess. The medium base. And that'll go on here. I'm going to use these little tiny screws, because that's what we have here. These come off of part out devices that we have, and we just keep them because you never know when you might need a random screw. And I'll just self tap them in here, and I kind of put that one in. You can see it makes its own little threads, and then I don't need a nut on the other side. And I put some of these in to try it out, and it's on there real secure, so we're good there. I also went ahead and took out these, which are to clamp the wire down if you were to use these side holes here. And I'm going to put these little bolts in place with 2 nuts. Now the reason I'm using 2 nuts, of course you can, use 2 nuts to lock it into place, but I'm using 2 because I need a gap between the hole here at the bottom and the ballast. Now, that's obviously important because we got to get the wires through. Got to get the wires past the ballast. If we were to put it right on the bottom, we wouldn't have enough room to get the wires through, so those are kind of standoffs to get the ballast up a little higher. Now, fortunately, the screws that were for clamps on the sides here are perfectly spaced out for the ballast. So the ballast fits in here without any modification. Just like that. Perfect. Of course, it's not, exactly the best. Let me get these wires moved. But you can at least center it on there and bolt it into place, and that'll work well. And as you can see, we have plenty of extra room still within the inside for the socket and all the wires. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt this into place and the ballast, and then we will move on from there. Now, one thing that should be done probably before we do all that is knock out one of these side holes, because we're going to need that for the socket to go through and plug into the lamp. Now, I'm going to reference my old video of when I made this, because I don't remember. I'm pretty sure I knocked out one of these and not one of these. I'm pretty sure it was one of these, but I just want to reference that before I continue. But when we come back, we will have all these put inside, and I did cut myself. Adding more pressure to self-tap screws is not the answer. Never was, never will be, but I thought it was, because I thought that would work. So here's the components put inside. We have the ballast and a whole bunch of wires. Now I could have shortened these wires, but I'm all about reuse. I like to reuse things when they get old, and so I want to keep the wires their original length, because you never know when you might want to reuse a part for a different project. So it's always good, at least for what I do, to leave them long. So I left the wires long. There's plenty of space in here for that. Of course, we have the socket or the base on the bottom here. We can look in through the hole on the side and see we do have a gap down there at the bottom. It's kind of hard to see because it's dark, but there's a gap letting the wires through. So now we will move on to the top plate here. Let me see where that is. Now we need to modify this. Of course, we need to knock out this middle knockout here. Then we need to install one of our starter sockets in the hole. Now, that's why it's incredibly important to have a starter with you, because that'll hold it in the hole while you're making the correct placement of the screws here. Now, as you can see, it looks like these are already threaded, so I'll have to see if I can find the right screws that they used for this, or we'll just do something else. Anyway, we'll move on to the top here. So we have the starter socket installed here, and I was very surprised that the threads are exactly the same as these extra junk screws that we have sitting around. So that worked out perfectly, and it was the perfect size. I mean, you can see it's a little too short. The bracket is a little bent to compensate for that, but it's the perfect size. And they're the same ones I used down here, so at least we got some type of consistency. It's a, similar. So we have our starter socket, and our starter fits in there. Perfect. It's not exactly centered as I wanted, but that's what happens. It still works, and you can still get the starter in and out without it scraping one of the sides. So still high quality, just not centered. Couldn't get it that far. Now what we need to do is focus on getting this bulb to mount on here somehow. So I got to go and get the metal piece. So here's the piece I cut a while back, and it's not exactly straight. You can see this side to the right is a little wider, so I'm going to trim that down, but I used this housing for an under cabinet fixture. It was brand new, so you get a nice somewhat ceramic kind of white paint finish there. And of course that'll get mounted underneath the plate, so it'll come out in between here so that we don't see it sitting on the top like my original version was. The second iteration of it, I put them underneath so everything looked a lot cleaner, and we'll do the same thing here. Exactly how or what mounting hardware we're going to use, I guess we'll find out when we get there. I could do rivets or screws or bolts, whatever. We'll see when we get that far. But I'm going to trim this up, cut it in half, and try to curl it to match the curvature of the bulb itself. So where are we? Well, I went ahead and bent a piece into the shape that goes onto the bulb here. So that clips on there and holds the bulb decently enough that you can see it's a little loose. Well, there, it just wasn't clipped in. But it's going to get cut in the middle because, remember, we have that starter socket in the middle. So having some extra play, once we cut it in half, will be good, because then we can adjust it to get the right amount of tension on the bulb itself. So that's that. I went ahead and marked some little dots there you can see on either side of the starter socket. Those will be the holes that will hold the lamp holder in place. So go ahead and drill those, and then line it up with this and drill the same ones. Now I'm going to try to do something where the holes on these are a little bit bigger. If I had a fancy machine to make like ovals or something so it could slide back and forth, that way it could be adjusted to always fit the bulb correctly. But we'll see how that ends up. But after we're done with that, we're pretty much done with all the manufacturing side of things. Then we can start wiring it up, and we're getting close to the end. So now we got the lamp holders in place, and they're a little flimsy because the metal is a little thin, but it gets the job done. I decided to use the same junk bolts that we had laying around again, because at least then it looks, they all look the same. If there's one thing that you need to learn from this video, it's plan ahead, and that's certainly something I don't do all the time. As you notice here, I had to drill a hole here and in the other corner. Now, why does that matter? Well, if you were to use the original holes for mounting this top, you would find out that the bracket blocks the hole where the wire comes out. So I couldn't cut corners and let it be like that. That would look not so nice. So I went ahead and used another plate I had here and laid it on top and marked out where the holes are supposed to be, and that works absolutely fine, but it's just not as easy to take off because you just don't loosen them to take them off. You have to take the screws all the way out. The other annoying thing with this adapter, and it's the same way with the other adapter I made, is you'll have to take it all the way off, this whole piece all the way off, just to put the bulb on, because the bulb doesn't fit going this way because of how bent out these are. But you are able to at least put the bulb through this first, so you don't have to worry about wires. That whole assembly fits through, so you just pull the assembly through the bulb, and then you pop it into place, you know, and then you can screw it back together. So there's a couple steps needed there, but we're at least at the point now where we can start wiring this thing up. So let's go ahead and wire our preheat circuit. So we got it all wired up. Preheat circuits are pretty simple. And we have our socket here for the lamp. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lamp on and put it together. Well, we finally have a finished product. And here it is. Even with all the bumps along the way in the past 2 hours here putting this thing together, I think it turned out pretty good. So we have our 20-watt Circline Preheat Adapter. We have the Leviton socket or base here. We have the little metal pieces to hold the bulb from a under cabinet fixture. We have our FS2 starter. We have the starter socket and the ballast inside. We have the bulb socket for the fluorescent Circline bulb. As you can see, it fits nicely in that hole. That is the whole reason why I wanted to have that there, is you don't have any wires sticking out. It works perfectly. It's the perfect height. This box works fantastic for this. Now, of course, we did have some bumps. Obviously, I planned out this front wrong. I should have shifted it all like this. And then we wouldn't have had the issue to drill the extra holes to mount the plate to the box. But on the positive side, these holes will allow ventilation to happen. So at least we can get some air through the inside and out the holes on the top and the side here. And ventilation is always helpful to keep the ballast nice and cool. So there it is. Wow, I haven't made this in quite a while. I do have, obviously, plenty of leftover parts here. Another socket and stuff. Maybe some other time I'll put together another one to put in my collection. But in the meantime, this one is done for a special someone. I'm sure they will make a video of it as well. Or everybody will comment who it is in the comments down below. But for the time being, I'll just leave it as a surprise. Very cool. Well, of course, we need to test it out. Unfortunately, I don't have a socket here to try it out with. We do have like a one of those trouble lights that you use in the vehicle, you know, with the guard around it. Maybe I'll modify that and we'll get this thing turned on one way or another. Okay, so I actually remembered that one of our bathrooms actually has a ceiling light. All of our other ones have a light above the mirror, but here we have a ceiling light. So I'll take this bulb out and we'll put ours in. Okay, so our bulb is installed, or our adapter rather, in this light that I found out is only held onto the ceiling with one screw. So I'm gonna have to fix that because I don't like that. It also is missing a globe, as you can tell. So that should be another thing. But anyway, here it is. Let's turn it on. Oh, was that a beautiful preheat startup. The first startup of this little adapter. Lights up the room nicely here. Look at that. Oh, that's so cool. I forgot how neat this was when I made it. There's like a very slight flicker. It's very slight. Not much at all. Let's do it again. Oh, beautiful preheat action. Oh, that's so cool. One more time. Wow, this starter and bulb go together quite well to give us a nice show. Of course, it's a Energy Wiser bulb. I don't know if Menards still sells these 20-watt Circline bulbs. Last time I was at one, which was quite well over a year or more ago, I did see them, but maybe they don't have them anymore. I had to order these online because Lowe's and Home Depot and even the local hardware store didn't have these. So that is just way too cool. Awesome. So, there it is, lit up. I just wanted to do a quick little piece on how to put the bulb on this thing. So you'll have to take off the top cover here, and that is because the width of the supports here are a little too wide to get the bulb on. So what you have to do is you have to put the bulb, or this through first, and then clip on one side, and then you can clip on the other, and then put the clips in place. And because the metal is a little thinner than what it optimal would be, you would have to just bend it back into place a little bit so you get tension on the bulb. And then once you get tension on the bulb, you can put it back together. So you see it's holding the bulb pretty good now. It's just the metal is a little thinner than what I could find, or than what would be best. So once you put that back on, of course you want to line up this side with the socket, so make sure the bulb is positioned in such a way that you can do that. And then once you screw it back together, or before you do so, it's probably a better idea to plug it in so you have some play. Now this plug does sit within the fixture kind of like that to look clean, and that's what it'll look like once it's all put back together. And I forgot to make an ending to the video, so one last time, here is the final product. Turned out really well. Let's go ahead and turn it on one last time before I package it up. Wow, is that blink happy. That's so awesome, you gotta do it one last time. Okay, so I'm sure the next time you'll see this thing, it'll be in somebody else's video. Anyway, I really do hope you enjoyed this hopefully good video. I haven't looked through all the clips yet of how to put together one of these. It's not too hard, just have to plan ahead, as I learned this time, especially with some of the placements of the screws. Anyway, once again, I really do hope you enjoyed, and also please comment, rate, share, and subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.